contrary to the actual title of this video, I don't think you're actually stupid, or at least most of you. But there is this idea of that there seems to be this grandiose position of the person who is actually dictating the video or dictating the live stream or, etc. Of that somehow they are in a higher position than the person that is actually listening to them. And this comes, I think, from a little bit older hierarchy type mindset of companies having the power over, all the people that work under them. And so what I think has happened in personal businesses such as streamers or pro players or, content creators, etc., is that because there are thousands and thousands of people of them, that means that they can end up being a dick to 5 or 10 of them. And it doesn't matter because those people are disconnected from all of the other fans. This is essentially how the entire idea of union type ideology actually works, is that because you guys aren't coagulated into one sense, then that means that you can never actually form a coalition to get rid of whoever is controlling you. And I'm not saying like a person that is a content creator or etc. is controlling you, but there is a certain amplified voice when multiple voices get together. Now, one thing that I don't get about when I look at other content creators or just other people is I find like there is some sort of infallibility to say that, I am smarter than you, or here's why you're wrong. And maybe they'll pull some examples of people that are clearly wrong. And so therefore that will justify the means of their entire thought process. So just to be clear with my audience, at least, I don't think that you're stupid. In fact, part of the reason as to why I formulate the questions that I formulate, or rather I posit the actual explanations or rather questions, even in my own freeform thought videos, is because I don't think you're actually stupid. Because I think that you have a general idea of to whether, you have the brain power in order to determine if what I am saying is actually right or wrong, or rather whether I actually posit a great idea to which then you can actually look further into and maybe extrapolate what you believe is true or not. And this is how I try and conduct a lot of my interviews and whatnot. And so I think one of the general best rules that you can ever do in talking to your audience, and when I mean talking, I mean either creating a video, and it is often kind of dialogue in that sense, and it may seem like one face in the sense that only I get to talk or whatever, but there are also comments, there's also people that react, there's also everything like that. But I always try and think that you should believe that your audience is smarter than you think that they are, because when you think in that mode, then you end up saying, okay, well, if you believe that your audience is smarter than you think, oftentimes what a lot of people try and do is dumb things down to a ridiculous degree and then extrapolate a whole bunch of shit and blah blah blah, and trying to explain all the different nuances and shit. And it's just I don't need to explain to you how CS works in a lane or how any of that shit. And to be fair, I don't know how a lot of that shit works. I don't really find it interesting either. I'm not a pro. I don't need to know exactly how much health it takes or whatever. But I do know almost somewhat to where, when you go from level 1 to level 2 in the bot lane, and how much XP that actually takes and whatnot, and how pro players should obviously know this shit too. So I don't want to approach my audience in that sense to where I think them is dumb as a brick. They know that, there's a certain wave in bot lane to where people turn level 2, and generally people should know when they should be turning level 2 versus the enemy bot lane, and so therefore the enemy bot lane needs to back off, and that's why they're backing off, etc. Like, it's like super obvious shit, right? We all know the shit that you guys are probably annoyed that I'm even talking about this right now. But also, too, there is maybe a difference in language comprehension, right? To where, there are some people that may understand like certain levels of language because maybe they aren't a first English speaker, right? So you need to take that into account. But that doesn't necessarily mean that they are stupid, right? That just means that they don't understand you in the language that you are speaking in. Therein lies the very big difference. And I think that leads to a large kind of misinterpretation when it comes to just speaking about a particular subject or whatnot. But also, too, when I'm talking about this broader subject of communication or people thinking that other people are stupid, is I find casters do this a lot, and this is what bothers me, is that I feel like oftentimes, and this is for lower quality casters, I don't actually feel that veteran casters do this a lot. And I'm not going to call out any names, but I assume you guys could think of who I'm thinking about, is that there are certain casters that just overhype situations to where you end up knowing the end result of what is probably going to happen, and yet this caster is so excited about something, whether they're an analyst or whether they are a shoutcaster or etc., is that they end up overhyping the situation. And it's one of two things: either they're overhyping the idea because they want to inject excitement into a play that is not exciting, or the worst idea of the situation, which is that they actually don't know what's going on, so therefore they can't measure what level of appropriateness they should actually announce the call. And that's the worst part of the problem. And I think this is one way in which the broadcast quality actually goes down significantly, because we realize that the hype is actually artificial, in sense of that the caster is actually talking in an artificial way, or in the other sense, they don't know what the fuck they're talking about. And both are equally as bad. You judge on which of the two is actually worse than the other. But I feel like ads are very similar in this way, in the fact that when you think about ads, you initially think about, okay, well, why are ads necessary? It's to make money. Okay, that's great. But then when you think of ads necessarily at their fundamental level, why do ads exist? It's to make money. But what is the fundamental problem with ads is the fact that they are disingenuous. And this is going out to all the industry people that are listening to this shit right now and like trying to get into you like psychologically here, is that why are ads so misplaced, right? Why do ads feel so awkward, or why do they kind of shift the momentum so much? And it's because oftentimes ads feel disingenuous. They feel like they break up the flow. And that may be because of the ad, particularly of what you're trying to advertise, but also because of how you actually advertise it, and the mode in which you advertise it, or maybe the medium in which you advertise it, or maybe the actual particular portion in which you advertise it within the actual broadcast. So you need to ask yourself these different things. And I think therein lies the problem of maybe why people are actually uncomfortable with certain different ads at certain particular moments, particular phrases, or rather just because the ad actually doesn't fit the entire broadcast theme itself. So this goes on to my other idea of that uh, essentially parasocial relationships actually mean audiences can see through you. That means, and this is kind of an uncomfortable idea, and I get it. I get that it's very uncomfortable that maybe strangers know you to a significant degree without actually having met you, but it's very true that if you're on camera for hundreds of hours, they're probably gonna have a decent judge of your character, because even though you might put on a persona, like even Dr. Disrespect, if you put on a persona for maybe he's probably the loosest term, but if you put on a persona, people are going to eventually be able to see your true character, especially if they're intelligent enough to, like look through the past surface of, what you're talking about. So like Dr. Disrespect probably is the best person because he is very thick persona in the very beginning, and then maybe you could figure out exactly who he is as a person as you move past what is Dr. Disrespect and you move to Guy, whatever the fuck his last name is. But so yeah, there is a sense to where parasocial relationships can actually mean that audiences can actually see through that. And so with that said, I think a lot of like broadcasters, because I want to relate this back to broadcasting and how maybe they can relate to their audience more so, because I feel like they're very separated in a sense, especially within the LCS, for instance, is that I think that fakeness is actually seen easily through within the LCS broadcast. And one thing that I've kind of noticed is that the LCS seems very structured in a sense, but it seems structured because the phrases or the actual wording or the transitions are manufactured, rather than you could actually make it to where it's a little bit more freestyle. I would actually recommend a lot for a lot of casters or even like desk hosts, etc. And I'm not saying that I'm better than all the LCS hosts or analysts or anything like that in terms of freeform thought, because certainly I'm like way lagging behind on them. But I feel like one thing that has actually helped me was hip hop and freestyling, and the fact that I had studied freestyling and hip hop and rapping towards instrumentals for a significant amount of time, although I did it on my own, but it still helped me develop freeform thought and to kind of expand my mind to where I could actually think outside the box, and I could think of, like different things to where other people couldn't actually predict exactly what I was going to like prophesize outside of, whatever that they were thinking of originally. So I think that kind of lesson could actually be very valuable to a lot of the people on the broadcast, etc. Or, like acting classes, which is, one thing that I give credence to towards Dash. But also, it's the fact that the fake radio voice doesn't actually work anymore, too, which I still see reminiscent within sometimes when people on the analyst desks or just people within just multitude of esports ended up relying upon. I see this a lot within some of the amateur leagues, and the fact that they try and put on this weird throaty type extravagant over enthusiastic voice, which you can obviously see that doesn't match their facial expression, and so you can just inherently see that it's very fake, in fact. And I think this is kind of a really big problem, and I think it actually waters down just the entire product of what is maybe a esports broadcast. Now, I'm not saying that you shouldn't be able to be overconfident, right? So I think maybe a verbose type of language or a verbose type of energy is then clued into maybe overconfidence, or even rather the fact that me commenting on people not doing what I think would be an adequate job. And in fact, that I've never been on a broadcast in my fucking life, in front of thousands of fans. But, like maybe I just have that overconfidence or something. But like, I think people should have somewhat of overconfidence. People should be very confident in their ability, and so therefore maybe that will actually carry out into what characteristics they can provide upon the actual broadcast, etc. Like I would rather say that you should be a Kanye rather than being not a Kanye on the broadcast. Like 1000%. If you have the choice to be fucking Kanye on the broadcast or not, like, yeah, choose Kanye all day, every day, because that's more authentic than anything else. And that's why he's so popular, right? Because that it's authentic. And just because he is so eccentric, or because he's so over the top, or because he believes he's the shit, like that doesn't matter. That's just him, though, and so that's why everyone kind of accepts that to be the case, and like that would just be like me, like being a Kanye in that instance of just like, yeah, actually, I do believe I'm the best interview in all of esports. Like, I do believe I'm the best interviewer in all of esports. Not gonna lie. Yes, I'm talking out my ass, and, yes, like, that may be very ridiculous, but I do believe that to be the case. Whether you believe it or not, that's what I believe, and so, like, I think with that, and when you go into that type of gear, you end up trying to fulfill that notion, even though that might not be the truth. Maybe I'm a worse interviewer than Thorne, which probably am. Maybe I'm a worse interviewer than Ashley Kang. Maybe I am, but I don't believe that to be so, and I want to prove that to be, otherwise, or other difference. And so, like, I'm gonna go in there, and yeah, maybe I am gonna be the fucking Kanye of interviews, but like, so be it. Fuck you. So I like to end off with something which had sparked this idea, which was Asmongold talking about how Dr. Disrespect had launched his new video game, and it features NFTs, etc. And Asmongold says, that's acting outside of his brand. And so people are going to hate that shit because it's outside of his brand, etc. I'm not sure if I agree with that. I don't know a whole lot about NFTs, but on the initial premise of acting outside of your brand, he made a very good point, which was the only way that you get canceled is if you act outside of your own brand. So, he says something like, if Keemstar had said the N-word again or something like that, and he was just like, I don't think Keemstar would get canceled because he had said the N-word before. He's this ridiculous guy that, just says stupid shit or blah, blah, blah. It's just all drama, everything like that. Like, actually, yeah, that's a very good point. So, like, yeah, in some circumstances, like, stay in your lane. But I think the biggest point that I took from that was, don't be disingenuous from who you actually you really are. If you are, a scumbag like Keemstar is, then yeah, go ahead, like, be Keemstar, but like, at least people expect you to stay in your fucking lane like that. So, like, that's what I mean in that essence, is that if you are a broadcaster, or if you are someone that is trying to come up in the game, etc., like you should just try and be authentic because people are gonna see through that shit. But like not only that, but like you should not try and conform yourself to something that you aren't, because people are immediately going to see through that. People are immediately going to see that you're maybe talking down to them, or maybe you think that they are more stupid than you actually think that they are, or etc. Like people are going to notice these different nuances and whatnot. So like at the end of the day, like I'm just trying to say, just be truthful for actually what your message actually is at the end of the day.